So the topic's mindset. Hi, I'm Brent the Aussie, and over here we have
the Indian Jackie Chan.
Jackie Chan, and together we're the Aussie and the Indian Mindset Motivators.
Yes.
We've got a really special guest today here, and we're actually at Chris's house. How cool, the paintings in the background. So Chris Kelaher, former Managing Director of IOOF, we're going to have a chat today about mindset with him and how he sort of achieved his goals and stuff like that. And like with life, you know, life's never level playing field. You'll have peaks, you'll have troughs, and we're going to talk about how we handle the troughs and what he did to get back up to the peak. So anything else you want to add, Jackie?
Of course, let me first say thank you to Chris for doing this for us. Really appreciate you taking the time out. And how was the lunch?
Lunch was good. Yeah. It was on a day like today, blue sky in Melbourne.
Yeah.
Perfect day. So eating al fresco in Albert Park.
Yeah.
That Italian place, wasn't it? Yeah. We went for lunch too.
I was in the city, was getting my work done, and I didn't have my breakfast. So I called Brandon. I was like, I'm starving. Take me somewhere first. we had a great lunch.
Chicken parma.
Yeah, and then we had a couple of beers. That was good. So Chris, let's jump into the day one you started your career in the business world, entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What made you go into that? Like how it's all began with you?
My suspicion is that it was an evolution, and it was sort of the line of least resistance. So, I think from early days at university, all my friends did law.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, we should do law.
Oh,
and then it became apparent that the best way to do law was to do it at Monash, and to do it from the perspective that you get 2 degrees for one sort of semester, for one term at university.
Yeah.
So we did economics law, which was only available at Monash University at the time. So all my friends were going there. So it was the line of least resistance. So I ended up doing that. It was always going to be a university degree, no other question. That would have been fulfillment for my parents. So not a lot of input from me. That's what they wanted. So that was the payback.
That was the world we were in, like I'm born in 80s.
Yep.
My parents were always about getting good, degree, study and get a job. But the world has changed now. What do you think about that?
Yeah. No, I think I'm a great believer in evolution. If people were asking me for advice these days and said, get a degree and that's your ticket to ride, I'd say, hasten slowly. I'd say there are plenty of non-university qualifications, trades and business, full stop, that can fulfill you. And plenty of my friends have been very successful and didn't go to university. So it's not the panacea. As I said, it was the line of least resistance. You know what I'll do? I'll go to university. Parents happy.
Yeah.
I'm happy. I'm with my friends.
Mates with that.
The years at university were pretty much a lot of fun. So
a lot of fun. Yeah.
Rule number 1: don't fail.
So the parents get approval from the parents.
Well, it was free in those days, so just keep passing, and
it was free.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I think it was union fees only in those days.
Wow.
So,
oh wow!
I paid 50,000 for my degree.
Wow. Now, where'd you grow? You grew up at Croydon, was it?
Ringwood.
Ringwood. So Ringwood boy.
Yeah.
Grew up out there. I remember when the day we went out and played Cathedral, you pointed to where you lived.
Yeah, Ringwood, Croydon. Yeah,
around that area.
Yeah. So, which great, peaceful upbringing. But spent the first 6 years of my life living in Africa, so quite unusual, and had an English accent when I came back to Australia. So, and probably people still say that I have an English accent still.
I was about to say that.
A little bit, because my granddad was English, so I hear that a little bit when I talk to you.
Yeah.
And why? How you ended up in Africa at that time?
Yeah. Father worked for Shell. He was a civil engineer, or civil mechanical engineer. Worked. Bird just crept in.
That's okay. Go away, bird.
And so he worked in Borneo. He worked in Egypt, and he worked finally in Nigeria. So I spent 6 years in Nigeria. Whilst he worked for Shell. So then we came home and pressed on to another career.
Yeah. And because you were in that environment where your father was working with Shell,
Mhm.
was the reason you moved into corporate world, or you had any
No,
other
no, no,
ambition?
no. He was not a corporate man. I mean, he was a practical man. He
Yeah.
was he retired as the chief engineer at CUB, Carlton United Breweries. So he was very practical.
Oh, wow.
He built a 42-foot boat in our backyard in Ringwood.
Wow.
And
Is
yeah.
that why you got your interest in boats? Because your dad?
Yeah. Oh no, I've been sailing. Yeah, I've done a couple of Sydney Hobart. So yeah, I've done a lot of sailing. Still sail for my holidays now. Like sailing holidays. So
Wow.
What was that place that we did the NLP with? The anchoring? Go away, bird.
the which?
What was that place, that water?
Oh, Azure.
Azure. Where was
Yeah.
that? That was somewhere.
Gold Coast.
Croatia.
No, that's in Croatia. probably.
Croatia.
Yeah,
That's his
yeah.
favourite.
Yeah, so we've done a lot of sailing, a lot of sailing in Croatia and around that area
Wow.
in the Med. So yeah, it's.
What do you like about the sailing? What is it about the sailing that you enjoy?
I like the water generally. I like the view of the water. I
Yes,
like the vista is
Yep.
perfect, and you can swim there. The Med, there's snow sharks, so you can swim, and weather's beautiful. Places like Croatia are very reasonably priced, so it's very attractive. Love the cuisine.
When were you there
Yeah.
last?
About a month ago.
Oh, wow.
Oh, really? You went
Yeah.
back again? Wow.
Yeah.
That's good. That's
Yeah.
good. Yeah. So when you ended up with your first job,
Mm-hmm.
was the money the driving force, or?
No, actually, quite the reverse. The first job you get when you're a lawyer is do you do articles? You get paid absolutely nothing. I have no idea what I got paid then, but it wasn't. It was spent by the time I got to the end of the week. and it's a very masterful occupation, meaning that you're really absolute nothing in the whole equation, and you do a year of, it's like an apprenticeship, and it did two things. First of all, it showed me there's not a lot of money in that equation.
Yep.
Okay.
But equally, it wasn't exactly something I thought I wanted to do. So I spent a year doing my articles, and then I was out free. So I was a fully qualified lawyer, and then I could practice. And so I practiced law for a bit.
But weren't enthused by it.
No, I wasn't excited by it. So, but that's fine. I think as much as anything, one of the lessons you learn in life is that you've got to try a whole lot of different things till you find out what really works for you.
Exactly.
Yep.
And that really showed me that I didn't want to do that. And that was, so it was helpful from that perspective.
So when you made a pivot from law to the business,
I didn't pivot directly from law. I saw an advertisement in the paper one day for a salary that was enormous, and thought I'd look at that company, and I was able to get a job as a lawyer, as an in-house lawyer for a company, and that sort of led me into the world of corporate life as a lawyer, and spent a few years doing that. Which was quite interesting. But it showed me more about entrepreneurial, about the people that I was working for. I was still just a lawyer, but it exposed me to the area of prescribed interest, which is really about raising money from the public and investing it, and the legal structures that go towards being able to legitimately raise money in a prospectus, register a prospectus, and then execute the investment thereafter. So I did that for a few years, and then that came to a conclusion. That was a fun time, and then I suspect I had probably 6 months off. I went skiing for 6 months, and then ended up with another job at Citibank. In the same area as in the area of prescribed interest. So they were looking to create a prospectus-based high net worth product in Australia.
Okay.
And so I joined that company and did that for, I have to refresh my memory here about the dates necessarily. I think that was in 1985, somewhere around then. I spent 13 years with Citibank.
Wow.
And then ended up running their funds management business in Australia.
Yep.
And as much as anything, it taught me several things. Firstly, that when all the things that a big bank like that does are all the things that don't make any sense to me. and almost my experience there was inverse. And I'm not singling out Citibank for any particular reason other than I was there, but every time I thought the businesses were going well, including the bank in Australia, and I wasn't working in the bank in Australia, I was working for effectively the private bank initially, and then the investment bank.
Yep.
Every time I thought it was going well, the share price for Citibank overseas was going bad, and reverse. So the direct feedback you get from your experience in these institutions is quite inverse in some respects. Importantly, the lessons were that generally, from my own perspective and commercially later on in life, everything they did, I did the reverse, and I was very successful as a result of that. It was an interesting experience because it gave me a lot of lessons. We had many different bosses over the years, and there was numerous sort of weirdo things that you see now. That the political correctness, we'll have a guy from Japan running the bank, running my division in the bank, and who could barely speak English and didn't know a lot about Australia, and the whole point about which was the bank was trying to build a franchise in Japan, and therefore they would spread the management across Asia, and even though this guy would fly down here once a month, and he was so jet lagged, and it was interesting observing these things and understanding that's not good sense. That's not good business. You see a lot of these examples these days where people want to invoke these sorts of doctrines, and everyone's happy because we've ticked all the boxes, and yet the business doesn't make any money. So like I said, there were some interesting examples, and I'm sure I'm not singling out Citibank for any other reason than I was there, and I'm sure if I spoke to any of my other friends that worked at other banks, they would say the same thing. Sort of weirdo decisions made, very bureaucratic, a lot of hierarchy, but made a lot of money. They made a lot of money despite all of that. And then as a result of many veiled broken promises there, I managed to engineer a return to Melbourne, because I moved to Sydney with that job. And then basically I sort of saw the writing on the wall that in Sydney, if you worked for the bank and you didn't go to Sydney University and you didn't play rugby union, you had no career, and therefore, it was really just a way. For me, it was a countdown to try and engineer an exit from the bank. And I managed to convince them that there was a bigger market. All the industry superannuation funds were based in Melbourne. And so I thought I would say, we should go back to Melbourne. And I encouraged them to that view, and they agreed to that. I moved back to Melbourne, and then swiftly started figuring out how to find another job.
Wow.
One of my biggest clients basically then tried to recruit me, and we argued for a year, and then I agreed to join him, and he wanted to take his business from Tasmania. It was a small business, $300 million of assets under management, very small, hardly any profit. And that was the genesis of where we ended up with IWF sort of 20 years later.
Wow.
Moved to Melbourne, started buying things, started building things, and off we went. And it was a great journey.
So you mentioned about that thing you saw in Sydney, about which made you to switch, like I want to move to Melbourne,
Well, it was clear to me that there was no sort of meritocracy in the company. It was a political company. Like I said, I'm not picking on Citibank for any reason.
No.
I'm sure it's the same at all the other banks, and from my other friends who work in these banks, it's the same thing. Basically, it's the politics. It's got nothing to do with how good or bad you are, and basically, at the end of the day, you sort of laugh and find out a way to either get even or get out. And I got out, so it was pretty clear to me. And that's the way. That's why it's fun. You accept that's the rule of life, and the way you respond is, if you can't change it, move on.
Good. But did you try to change it? Like,
I don't think I was experienced enough or knew enough in those days. I think, and as I said, I didn't, I was, well, one of the things you understand in these big banks is you have a succession of bosses, and then period over time, the guy that says, you're one of our star people, I'm making this up now, but you're one of our star people. We want to see your career blossom. We want to see you, we want to move you overseas.
Yeah.
And then you say, okay, so I'll move my family to Sydney. We'll do all this and that. Then this will follow. And then a succession of broken promises, successions.
Oh, right.
And the broken promises was simply the guy that made that was either fired or was moved on, and then a new guy comes in and he says, no, we're doing something else and you're doing this.
So you basically got sick of all that.
Well, yeah, after a while.
I think with this big corporate, that's how it works, So
yeah, there's nothing novel about it.
Because I have faced the same thing when I was with the corp. Like I used to work for AGL for 10 years. And I was not able to grow, and that was the reason I had to switch. I have to move out.
Bored. You get bored.
Yeah. Because you have a passion to do changes and grow yourself, but the commitments you've been getting, it's not fulfilled. Maybe for a number of reasons. Was it frustrating for you at that time?
It was very frustrating. But I had 4 girls going to school, 4 daughters. I think there's your own financial security you need to protect. So, maybe shut up and take it for the team and mumble along. And then it teaches you one thing, and I am very impatient. It teaches you one thing, it teaches you patience. So just, you need to hold the line, stay employed, keep paying for your school fees, keep everyone educated. And, and hopefully, there's a sun comes up tomorrow, and every day the sun comes up and you're still standing.
Exactly.
You've got a chance.
Above the ground.
You've got a chance.
Yeah.
And my chance came.
Absolutely right.
And I grabbed it.
And that patience paid well. Yeah.
Yeah. But if you thought that was great foresight on my behalf, it was very frustrating because I'm not a patient person. But it paid dividends significantly.
Yeah. Well, absolutely right.
Yeah. So you made the transition from Citibank, we're going to call it, with your mate, and you and your mate from Tassie start off IWF. Is that where you're sort of going with that?
No. IWF was an existing. It was basically a friendly society, sort of, that had a checkered sort of career here, and it had been sort of going nowhere, and had a succession of different people running it.
Oh, right.
Really done not a lot, and we clearly observed that they'd made a number of very poor business decisions. It was going sideways to backwards.
So you grew it, basically. You were in charge of growing it.
Well, yeah. But it had its own life before we arrived. But we had 40 M&A transactions, I think, was the last. Might have been more than that. So to get to the final, because effectively we reversed our business into IWF as much as anything.
Yep.
And it was quite clear that what they were doing was never going to make any money the way they were doing it, and therefore they needed to have a new approach, and we were that approach, and basically, it's not much more complex than buy low, sell high. I mean, we looked at a lot of different people there, and that they had a lot of people, and they had people there doing things that they didn't know why they were doing it, and so we got rid of them. So well, I can't imagine why they thought they were there, because they said, well, people were writing reports and no one was reading them. So why did you do that? Because we always did. So it was as basic as that. So a new set of eyes,
fresh.
And how long you been involved with IWF?
Well, the start of that Tasmanian partnership, sort of collaboration with my friend there, was probably 20 years. So when you talk about patience, But that patience line was like that. Yeah. It was a 45-degree angle every year, more, bigger, more assets, more profit, more everything, more.
Exactly.
And it was just accretive. And basically, in the funds management industry, if you can purchase assets under management and then reduce your cost base against that assets under management, you'll make money.
Yeah.
That was the formula.
Yeah, it was the formula, and so
it worked.
And it worked. I mean, and the last transaction that we concluded was we bought all of the ANZ banks in basically their wealth business.
Oh wow!
and that had been it's called One Path, that had been going around for ages, and it was in a bit of a mess.
How was that in numbers? The angel.
Oh, I think it was, my memory of the numbers now is not great. It's a few years ago now, but we paid nearly $1 billion for it. It was the largest transaction I'd ever done. We paid $1 billion for it. We probably bought, so I think, somewhere in the vicinity of $60 billion worth of assets under management.
Oh my God.
Ongoing.
Wow.
And interestingly, at the time, the business had never made really any money, but that was manna, from heaven to us, because when we looked at it, we realised that A, it was poorly run, B, it had an incredible expense base that wasn't justifiable.
So you could see the future in it, basically.
Yeah. I mean, there were a lot of things that were going on there that needed refinement. So, and it had a lot of. At the time we looked at it, that there were a lot of issues that it had with APRA. APRA is the regulatory body.
Yep.
And that were sort of ongoing and had never been addressed. So yeah, the whole point about which is that there was some real upside here.
Yeah.
Subsequent to my departure, the company bought MLC, and that unfortunately has been a bigger mouthful, and they're still working to try and absorb all of that, which they're now doing, and that's starting to bear fruit now. But that was a larger mouthful, and they paid more than
They should have.
Well, who knows? I'm not privy to the numbers in that transaction. But whereas the One Path was a late Amazare for us, it was straight accretive, straight on.
Yeah.
And we it was very attractive.
Yeah,
but if you told me in 1987, if you told me that we would buy One Path, which is the bank's wealth management business, I would have said you had rocks in your head. And yet we bought one of the leading, one of the top 4 bank industry wealth management firms, like shelling peas. I would have thought you were crazy. Yet we did that, and then we bought NABs, and the buy signal for us is when the banks are selling things. That's the buy signal.
That's the buy signal.
Yeah. And
Oh wow.
Yeah.
So and off we went.
They need money. They need cash flow, right?
Well, no. They think that there is a stigma attached to wealth management. They think that they can, gaining deposits from people and lending money, and then that's fine, and then we'll turn that over to wealth management and advice, and that's all the same. It's not.
Yeah.
Bankers are quite different to fund managers and wealth managers, and unless you recognise that, you'll get yourself into trouble, and all the banks got themselves into trouble.
Yeah, they have exactly right.
No more or less than Commonwealth Bank, whom everyone regards as sort of a latter-day saint. But they led the charge that laid the foundations for the Royal Commission. It was their, allegedly it was their initiative to convert their global equity managed accounts into their deposit account holders into global equity portfolios that subsequently went down.
Yeah.
And certainly some of the personnel that were sitting around the table at that time are now sitting at the top of the table at that bank. So people have short memories. It's interesting.
So I know you won't be hesitant talking about that moment when all this started with Royal Commission.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So how did you, were you been summoned? Were you been noticed? What happened? How exactly?
How'd you handle it?
Yeah.
Mentally.
Well, it's obviously it's obviously not an easy thing. It's quite a nerve-wracking thing. But if you believe that you're honest and you're correct, and as we've subsequently been borne out versus all of the banks, including AMP, we were the one that they tried to take on, and in court as well, and we were the ones that defeated them. So in the cold hard light of day, when the facts came out, the banks that paid the biggest remediations had the biggest fines, and all of their executives, none of whom were investigated or sanctioned. The one they went after was the smallest of the 4 plus AMP, and they were unsuccessful. So I think that statement sums up where they were going. They thought they will make an exception of us, And I think at the end of the day, if you think about what I'm doing, I'm telling the truth. Here's our business. Here's how we've always run our business.
Yeah.
And that was their big mistake,
Yeah.
because they took on a company that was actually the most honest of all of them.
Yeah.
And they failed miserably.
Correct.
The fact that sort of garnered about 1-inch column in the press versus all of the other press clippings of the company, I think is a statement about the standard of journalism that goes on these days. People deliberately printed untruths and got away with it. And I'm a great believer that if you're a journalist, you have an obligation to publish the truth. If you knowingly publish something that's untrue, you shouldn't do it, and you should be sanctioned for it. And people that do that, and I'm talking about some of the major business papers in Australia, that there ought to be some repercussions for that, but there were none. But it's history now. Time's moved on, life's gone on.
Yeah.
But back to that period, it was quite nerve-wracking. But as I said, it's very easy to tell the truth.
Yes.
Because you don't.
You know.
It's
like black and white.
But the final thing I would offer on that is that we have, fueled by these journalists, you have a raft of legal firms, quite unscrupulous, who are running class actions against companies, and they are baying for blood.
Yeah.
They have no interest in consumers. It's purely their own profit accretion, and therefore you have to be very point perfect about how you answer any inquiry made to you.
Yeah.
The fact that we were being sort of proffered to deliver thousands of folios through that Royal Commission every night, versus our counterparts, which were the industry funds, which have subsequently come under disrepute since then. They were not even subject to that inquiry, but we had to provide all this material. At the end of the day, you just think that, we're in a bad spot here. We just need to provide the information, which we did. They surfaced with their questions, which they did.
Yeah.
We rejected their assertions, which we did,
Mm-hmm.
and we were subsequently proved to be correct. And but that's not a news story, and therefore,
that's right.
That was a chapter that closed, and we moved on.
How long did it went through?
It's probably a couple of months, but as much as anything, I've never read necessarily about me and the company in the paper.
Yeah.
And during that period, I read less and less and less.
Okay.
And because it suddenly became clear to me that people were publishing things that weren't true. And as I said, there should be some sort of criminal sanction against people, particularly against public companies. If you are a journalist and you knowingly publish something that's not true, then you should be liable.
Yeah, because you are sabotaging someone's character, openly.
Well, not only the character, but you're also sabotaging the company.
Yeah, correct.
Okay, the company's still profitable.
Yeah.
The company's still going well.
Yeah.
And they think it's points to them to take the company down. And if it's subsequently settled that what they said was knowingly false, then the sanction should go the reverse. And we haven't got there yet, but that's where it should be.
It should be,
because people want to hide behind free speech and whatever.
And democracy, free speech.
Which is fine. But if you have a platform and you're a journalist and you print things that aren't true, then we had someone printing that for example, that we took our board minutes on the back of a piece of paper. Okay, that's totally untrue.
You can't.
It's just a flat out lie. And that was published in one of the papers. Okay, it's just flat out wrong. There's no platform to sort of redress that. But people thought, oh, what sort of company is this? I can show you our board papers. They were like 2 inches thick. There was no such thing as that. But anyway, it made good news columns. Anyway, lots of things that were said.
Exactly.
The majority of them were incorrect.
Yeah.
The majority of them are untrue. And the majority of all of the offences involved in that period were actually undertaken by the large institutions in the sector, not this company.
That's good.
Wow.
And who was the obviously there will be someone who was supporting you in that on those days, like your friends or your family? Was someone there who was always like, we can get this done, don't worry about it?
No,
I think Chris has
no,
always done it himself. hasn't he?
no. It's just me.
He's got a very strong mindset, Chris.
But well, it goes back to the fundamental belief. If you believe that you're telling the truth, if you believe that you've done everything by the book, by the law,
Which you're a qualified lawyer as well.
okay, if you do, then you have an undeniable belief that is the truth. Now, the fact that the truth doesn't come out is, that's another issue. But that's life. But no, I live by myself, But that doesn't mean that you don't get up in the morning and put your hands over the eyes and go, what
Here
the
we
hell?
go.
But there was a period there where you look out the front door and wonder whether I can remember that the boss of, or one of the directors, the chairman of AMP, had people camped out. I was thinking people would do that. But
Wow.
it didn't occur.
Yeah.
And because fundamentally, at the end of the day, one of the clearest things when you're running a large company like that, we have thousands of employees, but we also have thousands of people corresponding on social, interacting with the company.
Yeah.
In terms of the number of complaints that the company was receiving, we had nothing. It was actually quite disproportionate. It was actually quite
Not much at all.
inverse.
Yeah,
No. So a lot of it was about about a beat up, and I think sometimes you need to just weather the storm and don't complain, don't explain.
It comes back to the quote, truth sets you free. Remember your parents always told you and your kids, speak the truth. If you're speaking the truth,
and
you can't,
it comes
nothing
down
can
to
go
the
wrong.
self-belief, like Chris said, that within that you have done everything right, so there is no point of going into a nerve breakdown or a stress, because when you go nervous or into a stress mode, you make more mistakes, and when you are clear. Now, most of our audience is entrepreneurs, those who listen, who are listening to you. Number one question: any startup, who's starting up, what is your advice for them? If anybody's starting their own business in 2022, what will be your advice to them?
What would be my advice would be, to stand by for a very rocky road. Like it's pull the belt in. I mean the smart entrepreneurs that we see are guys that basically pay themselves nothing and pull their belts in and work their guts out.
That's what you did, right?
We paid peanuts. I mean, I was lucky. I worked with a lot of guys. The gentleman that we worked with that employed me in Tasmania, basically, he and another gentleman, an ex-accounting partner at Wallace, McMullen and Smale a million years ago, but basically told me the value of money and how much you pay people and what the quantum merit, what you get out of it, and you pay people what they're worth, and if they're no good, get rid of them. If you really hate them, keep them on. Because that's going to destroy them in a sense.
That's a good one.
I sometimes say to people, I'm going to give you some good advice. You're leaving today because you don't fit here, but you have a talent, but it doesn't work here, and you're better off to exploit that talent somewhere else. You can sit around here, but you're going to get nothing from this. But whereas people that I guess we were less interested in, they may as well stay here because, there is no future for what they do here.
Exactly.
Back to the advice. I'm not really prone to giving people a lot of advice. For example, one of the criticisms of our company is that, how many times did you go to seminars and promote what you did and how you did it? Well, we never did, because unless you paid me, why would I bother? And so you'd only ever go and do seminars and things if people either paid or you were running it, and you were speaking to your own attracted audience. So why would I tell people how we make money? What's my incentive?
That's your intellect. That's your IP, basically.
Yeah.
And
So
Chris worked out a way how to run the business, and it worked. And he just stuck with the formula, like baking a cake. You know to bake the cake properly.
And why should I share that formula without getting
without getting some return? Because if you give your power away, you lose it.
Now, look, there are shortcomings to that. because we became very insular, and then we became less interested in joining industry associations and whatever, because they were basically, the original one was a sort of a retirement fund for superannuation trustees.
Yeah.
Then some of the other subsequent ones we were paying money to, and we received nothing from them. They were quite political and achieved nothing, so we didn't join them.
Fair enough.
Now, in the cold hard light of that was an error, I think, because we were very apolitic. So that when there was when we had a whistleblower, for example, we had a serial fellow that had left another job under a cloud and come to us and had undertaken the same nefarious activities.
Mhm.
And the only way we could call that fellow off was by pulling some political strings. And we would basically looked after our customers, paid our shareholders, and had a good life.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden we were thrust into a world where we had to suddenly become very politic. And so be more meaningful in the associations and equally be more politic. So that there was no politician I could ring. Do you realise that we were a company that had 30 people in Tasmania? We now stand for 3,000, I beg your pardon. And arguably by today's metrics, we're probably the largest wealth manager in Australia.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
So size, yeah, I get it.
We went from that to that. And yet, if we had a problem, and could I ring a politician and say, we need someone to give us a break here? We're a major employer. We employ all these people by definition, even more than 3,000. They were direct employees. Give us a break. What's going on? We didn't have any of that. And so if I had my rathers again, I think I would have been, spending more time politically to say, right, you better shut these people down, because this is a success story. This is a legal success story that's done very, very well. And it's basically being hung out to dry for no good reason. So, so that was an error. I keep moving away from your original question.
No, that's fine.
No, that's fine.
The question is, pull your belt in and put your crash helmet on.
Go for it.
And go for it. But and don't spend it all up front.
Don't buy lavish toys and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah,
put the money back in the business.
Most of the, because we've invested in a lot of startups along more recently, and they've all been very average, and they've all been sort of hallmarked by people with lots of promises, lots of expenditure, lots of capital, and really lots of no idea, none.
My last question.
Yep.
Are you involved in any industry or any business right now actively? No.
I'm basically now I'm sitting on the bench now, gazing interestingly at the industry. I consult infrequently to different PE groups on the wealth management sector.
Yep.
But that's about it. Do I have a passion to be involved in it? Yeah, probably. But I'm probably a bit. Probably too hot to handle.
He's too good.
No. I don't think people like hearing from me when they if you want to hear it straight, then you get it from me. If you want to hear about what you want to hear about, then don't talk to me.
No, exactly.
Straight to the point. That's what Chris is straight to the point. This is what you need to do.
Yeah.
Go do this.
Yeah. If you want to make money,
that's how it should be.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people nowadays doesn't want to hear the truth. They want
They don't.
They want to.
They want to just toy around.
Last question. What do you think about social media nowadays?
Do you have it? Do you have accounts? Oh, really?
No,
Are you on
I
social
don't.
No.
I never had, principally because I was fortunate. So I grew up in an area at Citibank when they first started. They were one of the first companies, to my knowledge, maybe incorrect, that had a thing called CityMail. So we were actually interacting with our officers already, and then you certainly suddenly realised about writing emails after lunch and then going, that wasn't very smart. And I think that was a halcyon education to, basically the time for that sort of communication is definitely before midday.
Yeah.
But more importantly, that there's a responsibility attaching to it, and unfortunately that's something that we haven't quite reconciled yet. So, I'm a great believer in freedom of expression, freedom of speech.
Yeah.
But you're now seeing how it leaks out now, and you're seeing the major social media companies now applying their own set of censorship,
Yes.
and it's a bias censorship, and they are publishers fundamentally,
Exactly.
unfortunately.
Yeah.
They are.
But you know, I would also offer that I'm probably a kind of a Luddite. That at the end of the day, you know, certainly IWF has a very successful media, social media arrangement now, and lots of good messages going out.
Yeah.
But there's an art to it all, not in relation to IWF, but you can see when someone, take for example, Optus has a problem,
Yeah.
then they start flooding the internet with positive messages, and then you actually push the negative messages back. There's an art to it all, but I think there's still a fundamental responsibility to be to be positive in that, and certainly to find a mechanism that can police the bias that exists within these shells, because it is dangerous, and it
is.
And then for that reason, I've never been involved. And it's a funny story, but when my daughter got married, the best man got up and he had to sort of make a tale about me, the father of the bride.
Okay.
And he said that this guy, I know absolutely nothing about him. And yet, I've been in the paper and numerous things, but to his knowledge, he knew nothing about me because
he was looking for you on social
media, and there was no,
nothing.
I have no accounts or anything.
I want to ask one question.
Yeah,
so,
sure.
as a ex-managing director of IWF, how many hours a week did you work?
Look. To be honest,
Roughly.
Towards the end, because it's hard to quantify what working is, because I worry 24 hours a day, so I would regard that as working.
Yeah, I understand.
But in a titular sense,
yeah.
No, you go to bed at night, you wake up in the middle of the night going, shit, what's happening, or markets are down, then you'll wake up at midnight, is market down again, is the message something,
So would you have to get in the middle of the night and do work?
No, you just couldn't sleep, so you're going, shit, I don't know what's going to happen. So
wow. So how did you manage yourself through that?
Well,
you just got used to it, or
sleeping pills, I don't know. But it's a 24-hour day worry, and because not only are you worrying 24 hours a day, so you can work. I'd get to work at 8 o'clock in the morning, have a coffee, read the paper. Like the other things. I mean, I teach the execs, get the paper, read the media, find out what's going on overnight, then start your day at 8 o'clock. I had to teach people that, which is kind of curious. But then towards the end of the day, my career, I have to say that I was getting more removed away from the business.
Yep.
And I think that was less. That was less interesting. I was becoming more removed from the actual day to day what was going on.
Yep.
And so I would get to sort of 6 o'clock. That's about it. And I was a businessman. So I'd rather go and go to the gym at lunchtime rather than go out and have lunch with clients.
With the clients or whatever.
So
yourself more.
Yeah. So, but if you're running a big company, it's 24 hours.
It's 24/7.
24/7, and it never stops. And that never stops anywhere in the street. You have no idea when someone's looking at you and going,
wow.
If I go down the driving range, the guy says, I saw you on TV. So if you swore when you hit a bad shot or something, did he?
Oh,
did he
wow. Yeah, because I get it.
Yeah.
So, I thought of that way.
Yeah. So you tend to be quite circumspect. Try and operate in your cylinder,
in your circle of friends,
and in your circle of friends, and when if you're going to have some downtime, you have it somewhere where no one can see.
No one knows you in your name. That's why I like going to Croatia, right?
Yeah,
because you're an unknown.
Yep.
Infect over there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool. Anything else, Jackie? You want to ask?
I'm done. I have asked a lot of questions.
Yeah, but
it was great.
Thanks, Chris. I'd like to thank Chris Kelaher for coming on.
Yeah, thank you. This is Aussie.
I am Brent, the Aussie.
I'm the Indian
This
Jackie.
is Jackie Chan.
Thanks for joining us, guys. Really appreciate. I hope you enjoy this. Do not forget to share, subscribe, like, and leave your thoughts under this video.
Yep.
And if you want to find out more about the Aussie and the Indian, please email us on info@mindsetmotivators.net.
Yep. And also,
all the links are down below for you, which you can use. And wait, we are coming with more in next coming weeks. Thanks for joining in. See you.
Thank you. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Mike.
Anyway,
Thanks, Fred.
Really appreciate it.